Coming up in this edition of Inside Sports, we'll be looking at the sport of equestrian, where we'll explore its different disciplines, how one can get involved, and we'll also explore the factors that have hindered the growth of the sport on the island. When we return, the conversation begins. Welcome back to Inside Sports. I'm Nodley Wright. With me in studio to discuss the sport of equestrian is national coach and CEO of Hyde Riding Academy, Julian Hyde. Julian, welcome to Inside Sports.
Thanks for having me.
Julian, your name and my memory of you suggests football. How did you get involved in equestrian, and what is it really?
All right, so for me personally, I started riding at the age of 7 years old. So horses were a big part of my life growing up. I grew up in Bogwalk, Yorton, St. Catherine, and rode at a little farm owned by Mrs. Betty Waits in Bogwalk. So that's how I started with the horses. I did play some football going up into high school and but I think the horses just really spoke to me. I had to make a decision whether I wanted to play football or ride, and I just went with the horses, and I think that was one of the hardest but the best decision I made. And the sport equestrian actually is a combination of the horse and rider competing together to achieve different objectives. As everybody saw in the Olympics, there are 3 main disciplines that are covered, which is show jumping, dressage, and cross country, 3-day eventing. And there are also other disciplines that are covered under the equestrian umbrella, such as vaulting, which is really gymnastics on the back of the horse. There's reining also, which is more a Western style of riding. There's endurance riding too, which is basically the horse is going out on a trek and for miles and miles and miles, and it's really a stamina test for the horses. So there are different disciplines covered, but the main ones, as we saw in the Olympics, are those 3.
All right. There's this mythical creature, the Centaur. Are you aware of that? And if you are, does it remind you of what one does in this sport?
Well, it's a good analogy to use because it's really the horse and rider becoming one. And it's the only Olympic sport, I like to say this, it's the only Olympic sport that 2 athletes, the horse and rider, compete together. And it's the only Olympic sport that men and women compete on an even playing field. So it's not just you coming together with the horse, but it's really a good experience and you learn so much from them.
Right, you told me you got involved at 7. But what is it that pushed you into that sport?
Well, I mean, for one, one of my main pushers and motivators is my coach, because she still coaches me up to this day, Mrs. Waits. She's been there for me. As I say, I'm not from a wealthy background, so I mean, even when, we couldn't afford, or, she was there to help. And my mother also, she was the one that actually brought me there to the farm for the first time and gave me that introduction. So I don't think without them I would be here now.
But were you ever scared of the horses?
No, it's funny. I know I teach a lot of kids too, and they're very happy and want to come. And once they see the horse, they're like, wait. But for me, it was really just wanted to get out there. I would go, even when I didn't have lessons, I was at the farm. I would take taxi, take bus to go to the stable. So, you know, it's just the love that I had for the animals.
I say it seems a natural love for me, for you to take up yourself and go, even at a young age.
Yes,
but
yes.
And that experience, I'm sure, would have helped you in terms of how you deal with youngsters now. Tell me about that and its impact for you.
Yes, for me personally, you know, as I say, I didn't actually grow up having, you know, but people were there to help me along the way. And as a young man growing up, learning the responsibilities of looking after a horse, having to make sure that they're well taken care of, whether it's the diet, you know, conditioning, you know, how it is to bring on a young horse to competition level. So it really teaches you a lot of patience. It teaches you a lot of acceptance, because sometimes they can be very hard-headed too, riding. So, you know, it really gives you a whole new perspective on life too.
You mentioned patience, but there's something else I want to ask you about. The understanding between the rider and the horse. How difficult is it to get that?
Well, it does take time. I do have some guys that work with me and ride with me, and it takes time. I mean, I don't think I really, even though I don't think I'm fully there yet. There's still things that I'm learning every day. But as I said, it just takes time learning what they react to and how we can ask them, because sometimes we want to tell them what to do, but sometimes it's better to just ask them and let them give you what you want. So, you know, it's really just learning each one individually.
All right. All right. In terms of the 7 disciplines that are practiced, how many of those 7 do we do in Jamaica?
All right. Locally, we practice all 3 Olympic level events. We do show jumping, which is that's our main draw for a lot of riders and the kids that love to do the show jumping. Dressage is another one that we do here locally. And the cross country, we used to do it a lot back in the 90s. We used to have a big cross country field down in Trelawney.
Right.
And now Mrs. Waits has just kind of reinvigorated. She's building a new one at her farm in Bogwalk, so we're really trying to get back, because to us that's an easier option for our riders moving forward, getting into the cross-country level. The show jumping is good, but it's our horses, the type of horses we have here locally are more suited to that kind of riding, so we are having a bigger push going in that direction.
Right. Julian, before your name, I think one of the names that I can remember was Leslie Ann Masterton, I think she was at the time. It's
yes.
probably Fangi now.
Yes.
How widespread is a sport in terms of participation, and how much do people gravitate towards it?
Yes, well, it's always been a challenge for us. A lot of our riders too, they start young, because we like to start them, we used to say 7 years old, but I've found that I start them at 4 years old, 3 years old. They get used to the horses, and by the time they're at 7, they're already doing a lot of stuff on their own. But it's been a challenge for us, because a lot of times when the kids are finished with high school, they move on either to the States to go to school or different places, and we don't have that continuity. More recently though, we've had our riders that move on to the States continue competing there. They have lovely parents that are really invested in their riding career, and it's really showing proof.
I have to ask you this. You said you sometimes start as young as 4, but what do you do with a 4-year-old? And are there standard size horses, or do you start the younger ones with ponies and then move up?
Yes, so here we don't have that top level where we can have horses for everybody. So we do kind of mix it up a little. With the little ones though, it's really just the introduction to the horse, having them comfortable around the animal. We do the basics, you know, they get on and learn how to stare and stop. And I mean, within a few weeks, they're so comfortable that you can be leading them and they're on their own, no problem like that. So, you know, as I said, the earlier we start them, it actually proves that later on they're more able to handle themselves.
All right. Tell me a little bit more about the sport in terms of the Olympic disciplines, how points are allocated. Yeah, basically that. What are the rules and how points are allocated?
All right, so as I said, the different disciplines that we do, but the basic notion of the show jumping part of it is there's a course that's set, 11, 12, 13 jumps, and everybody actually walks that course before they enter the arena. And it's whoever can jump over those jumps the fastest that usually is the winner. So that's basically how it's run, without hitting down any of the jumps too. With the dressage, it's actually the arena itself. If you get a chance to watch again, anybody, the arena itself has different letters that are placed around, and the horse and rider has to do different movements in between. So you'll see a horse stepping side to side or skipping. They have to do those movements at set places. And the object of it really is to look like it's effortless. You don't need the horse to look uncomfortable, the rider to not look uncomfortable, and usually those are the ones that do better. And then, as I said, the cross country is really just, you know, it's a combination of all three. So you have to be able to show jump, dressage, and do the ride through the water and over the logs and over the trees.
I didn't ask you about, because there's this therapeutic effect we are told of that horses have with people or on people. Does the sport cater to young people with disabilities?
Yes, what you're talking about is called hippotherapy, and it's been used all over the world with kids or adults with special needs, just having that interaction with the horse. We actually had a local lady here, Debbie Simpson, that did a lot of work with the mustard seed community. She did work with a lot of those special need kids. And I mean, I never turn them down. Anybody that wants to come and have an experience with the horse, you're more than welcome. Get a ride, and you know, we see how the kids take on to it. And
I'm going to ask you this one quickly. From my perspective, looking at the sport, it seems to be naturally a sport that naturally physically distances. How did COVID, or how does COVID-19 affect the sport locally?
Well, I'm sure initially, like every other sport, we had that time where we really had to keep away. So we were down for maybe about 2-3 months initially in the COVID. I actually started back with my lessons on a private lesson basis. So it was just one ride at a time, them and I in the arena. And as you said, the social distancing is already there. Then we're able to, through time, get more people involved. But the funny thing about our sport was that it allowed for more people to get involved, you know, because it wasn't a contact sport, so people were really trying to come out and get a ride or see if they could, you know, join up or get started. So it really was sort of a blessing in disguise. We have more people involved, and, you know, we're, you know, still keeping our protocols and making sure everybody's safe.
Indeed. Well, we'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll delve deeper into the sport. Welcome back to Inside Sports. I'm Nodley Wright. Still with me in studio is National Equestrian Coach and CEO of Height Riding Academy, Julian Hyde. Julian, tell me a little bit more about your role as the national coach, and then after that we'll move into your own private entity as the head of Hyatt Riding Academy.
Yes. So, well, our discipline locally is governed by the Equestrian Federation of Jamaica, which is an affiliate of the FEI, which is our world governing body. Our new president, we just voted in our president, Heidi Stallmeyer Layla. Leslie Ann
Yes.
Fangi, she's our treasurer. Jason Walter, he's our secretary. And you know, we've started on with a new energy, and it's been good.
So now to your duties as national coach. Tell me about that.
All right, so I've been national coach now for about 4 years. I did my level 2 certification down in Cayman. So I'm a level 2 registered coach. It goes up to level 4. So it's been a real eye-opener for me too. I've had the ability now to take riders overseas. We've done a few competitions before the COVID came about in Ecuador, Guatemala, more than once too, and we've represented the country well. So we're really hoping to continue on that vein. But as you know, life happens and COVID is here. So we're really trying and hoping. We've got more invitations coming up, and we're hoping that we can start again that push to more competitions locally and overseas.
The fact that you are now the national coach, does that mean that you have retired from active competition?
No, and boy, it's a conversation Mrs. Waits and myself have all the time. She says, Julian, never give up your riding, because it's the only thing that will keep you. And it's true, it keeps me in the sport, and it keeps me really invested in the kids that are coming forward. So definitely, we're still looking for more competitions. We're really on a drive now to find a horse. Definitely nothing locally. We're looking at different places overseas to see if we can get something suitable enough to try and qualify, firstly, for the CAC games.
And that's for you. You are pushing to qualify for the CAC games. So do you coach yourself?
No, I mean, as I said, Mrs. Waits she's my guiding light.
Right.
We do get help though. We bring in clinicians sometimes from overseas. We have good contacts in Argentina, in the States. So we do bring over professionals that have a different eye and can help you, you know, where we might miss a few things. So it's a team effort, but I'm not leaving out Mrs. Waits. She's the
Understandable.
guide.
Understandable. Your godmother.
Yes.
So let me ask you this now. In terms, when we look at the sport, how lucrative is it? One, for the competitor, and two, the coach?
All right, so that's a good question. As you know, horses aren't cheap. They cost a lot, especially if you really want to take it to the next level. I mean, what we do locally is really good, a real base for the kids, but for them to really see their true potential, they have to travel overseas. And that's why we really need the help from not just our parents. Our parents are amazing and they give everything, but we need help from corporate Jamaica, anywhere else that can help to inject some real life. We do get help though from our SDF partners, Sports Development Foundation. The JOA is very active in our federation too. But you know, to really get our team, get our riders out there, we need the help.
How responsive has the private sector been to entreaties from your body?
In the past, they've been really a big part of our sports development. I mean, Hypro has been a long-time sponsor of our federation, and we've recently started a new partnership with Nutramix, so they've sponsored a few events that we've had also. So we've had help in the past. A lot of it comes through our parents too, because they're out there active and really want to see the kids succeed. And you know, with the parents and the federation, we really try and make it happen.
I must ask you this. Can you, as a coach, make a living from this? I asked you, but you danced around it. But I ask you again, can you make a living from this with Hyatt Academy and all of that?
Well, it has taken time for me to get here, a lot of work, and help from the Waitses. Susan Waits, who was the person that ran the Kingston Polo Club before I got there, she kind of put everything in my hands, and she said, Julian, just, if you can keep this place going. And we've put in a lot of work. We've got new riders in, and it does help. As long as the horses get paid for, they get their feed and they're covered, I'm okay, So at the end of the day, it does, help.
All right. One of your mandates, I'm sure, is growing the sport. How do we do this?
Well, another good question there. It's really getting the word out there, and one of my big things is trying to get the sport more accessible to everybody else. It's going to be a huge undertaking for us and our board and everything, but we want it to be where anybody can come and ride. So I do trail rides just so that people can come and interact with the horses. You never know who would fall in love or which kid will, want to push the parents to let them ride. So that's one of the ways we try and do it, just to get the word out there. Another way that we're trying is to invest more in the horses that we have here. A lot of the animals that we get are old race horses from the track that has a tendon or has some injury, and we have to nurse them back to 80-90%, and then we can work with that. So a lot of times we really have to pitch patch what we have. So we're really trying to push to get more horses in, and that's where the help will come in, to get more horses here, that we can also invite other countries to come here and compete at a higher level. I feel like the shows that in the past, when we used to have those countries come in here, it spread the word a lot more around, and more people were interested in even coming and watching and seeing what we have to offer. So I just think, with hopefully everybody getting the vaccinations and everything, we can all get back to a place where we can compete and start seeing more people come around.
Two quick questions. You keep mentioning the horses, so I have to ask you about the horse stock, the stock of horses that you have now.
Yeah.
What is it like?
As I say, it's all right. For like what we see at the Olympics, when we see those horses popping over, I mean, a 1.60 meter jump is as tall as me, and I'm almost 6 foot. So it's for those horses to really jump over that is a special breed. They have the warm bloods that are bred in Europe, and they all came from the sport horses in Ireland, which is a totally different breed from the thoroughbreds that we have here locally. So with that injection of a different kind of animal, maybe even mixed with what we have locally here, can provide a better quality for everybody. And I think when we can compete locally at a much higher level, I mean, not 160 Olympic level, but CAC level, Pan Am Games level, if we can get to that place, then we've accomplished a lot.
Okay. Julian, with COVID and everything that's taking place, how optimistic are you that we'll start having competitions again soon, and that we'll be properly represented out there, senior level and with the youngsters?
Yes, it's kind of hard to say no. We actually had a show that was planned for the 11th of September down at Drax Hall, and we've had to call that off. But we do have plans for later on in the year. We're hoping to have a December closing show, and maybe a couple more training ones before that. So we kind of have to play it by ear and see how we can work it out. As I mentioned earlier, though, we do have overseas invitations, as same countries, Guatemala, Dominican Republic, Suriname, so more in our region. I think we with our riders, we can go there and compete. With the stock of riders that we have in the States, because we have a few riders that are representing and riding under our flag overseas, they've already started competing. I mean, they're traveling around now, so we're a little behind. So we need to get going.
Julian, Cayman Spark is up and running. Other sports are becoming even more active. The fact that your sport is naturally a physically distancing one, do you feel hard done by the suspension of activity that your sport went through and all the other sports, but particularly your sport?
Yes, initially we did go through times where we were wondering why are we, but for the greater good, we could understand why there were such strict regulations. But I think for us, it has actually changed how we kind of set up our lessons and how we go about everything with, you know, keeping everything spaced out, riders having their own time and their own distance. So, you know, it has been difficult, but, you know, we're still trying, we're still planning our shows, we're still keeping the calendar up to date, and hopefully we can get, as I said, more before the year is done.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to send one final message to potential sponsors and the people who you'd want to become a part of the sport. The floor is yours.
Well, everybody, I'd like to first, we've introduced you to our sport, and I hope you've learned a lot from it. We definitely need help in developing our sport both locally and our riders overseas. We have great potential. We've already had a representative at 2 Olympics from Jamaica, not homegrown, but imagine if we had a homegrown athlete representing our country at the Olympics in equestrian. I think it would be amazing, not just for us, but for brand Jamaica and everything that we have to offer. So please, our phone lines are open. Give us a call.
Julian, you're an excellent ambassador. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this episode. And I want to thank you, Julian, our national coach for equestrian and CEO of Hyde Riding Academy. Join us next time.